This was initially made to run through layered rigging or sandwich-style rigging. The intent was just to show it applied to an arm and let you kind of figure out other applications in which to use it, but I ended up with an extra hour, so I applied it to a torso and used it a little bit on a face. The end result is the guy you're seeing on the screen right now. He never really leaves three-quarter pose, but using this, you can definitely achieve a pretty realistic kind of 3D effect by pushing around shapes. I initially learned this back in the days of Flash, before you had the ability to kind of change the thickness of your stroke. You would take two shapes and stack them on top of each other. One would be the color of your stroke, the other would be the color of the fill, and by offsetting the fill, it would kind of give you the appearance of a tapered stroke. This process is now being applied to rigging, in this case a hand. You can see on the screen we have the fill color with the transparent stroke, and on the back we have the exact same shape, but with the color of the stroke. And by overlapping and sandwiching the fingers in between, it gives the appearance of a solid line all the way around. With the hand, this effect was achieved by using groups inside of a single drawing, but you can see here in a second, you can achieve the exact same effect in the X sheet by duplicating drawings and then stacking them accordingly in order to make it seem as though the hand, forearm, and upper arm are all one piece. Once it comes time to rig, what I like to do is I take the shape that makes up the stroke and I parent it to the shape that makes up the fill, and then everything else gets parented the way you'd expect. The hand to the forearm, forearm to the upper arm, boom, done. This line right here is kind of necessary. I just add it to the fill shape, but you can definitely add it to a new column and parent that column to the fill shape column. Basically, it's just making it so that there's a separating line between the upper arm and the forearm. If you feel like you have the concept down, you're more than welcome to stop the video here. I would totally understand, but if you continue watching over the next, let's say, 5 minutes or so, you'll see it applied to a torso and mildly used on a head rig. You'll basically see it in practice, and I'll probably touch on little things here and there that I run into on a very regular basis. I'm not sure how many of you are using Vector in OpenToonz, but I really appreciate it. I use Vector in a bunch of different programs, and I appreciate the fact that in OpenToonz, I can let the computer do all of my in-betweens for me. I also like to work with closed shapes. That way I don't have to deal with kind of a finicky fill here or there. It's not something that I'm going to do all the time, but if I can get away with closing a shape, I'm going to do that. The problem that comes along with that is oftentimes with the in-between, where it kind of does a strange rotation. It's thinking that one vertice that makes up the path is a different one, and so it's doing what it thinks is right. You can see it right here, the little flippy do. When you run into this problem in Flash or in Toon Boom, they offer you shape hints in order to solve the problem. I hate them. I don't like using them. I don't like working with them. And that option is not available in OpenToonz. However, if you just take the cutter tool and you add a little slice in the same spot on all of your main drawings, your in-betweens will be perfect. And all the cutter tool is really doing is just adding a couple of endpoints that helps the computer figure out what's going on. You can start to see the torso coming together here. It is basically the upper half of the torso and the two legs that are sandwiched between the lower part of the torso. So here I'm going to start rigging the head, which is an absolute overkill for my purposes. There's no reason to do this for this little 2 seconds of animation that I'm setting up. But let's say, for instance, that you were going to use this across multiple scenes, right? You would basically take all the elements of the face. They're all in their own individual columns. They get parented to the letter F. In this instance, I'm using the letter F that stands for face. That's acting as a peg that's controlling all the elements of the face, right? The eyes themselves are going to be parented to the letter P, which is short for pupil, which is getting parented to the face. And then I'm using this technique on the left side, the right side, as well as the chin. So anytime that I grab F and move it up, down, left, right, whatever, it's going to move all the elements of the face and give the illusion that the head is rotating without having to do any additional drawings, right? If, let's say I need to retime something for whatever reason, it's as simple as just grabbing that keyframe and pulling it up and down the X sheet. There's no need to add additional drawings, do additional in-betweens, which is not a lot of extra work, but over time it adds up. Especially when your head rig is on separate columns, all involving different drawings that need to be reframed and then in-betweened. So this is a somewhat more elaborate rig. It was mainly rigged for showing off kind of a head turn-ish kind of a thing. You'll see it go from straightforward to profile and then to a top-down all over the course of 3 minutes. I guess it could have been more elaborately rigged, where you have the eyes, mouth rigged up for whatever. But these are just simple drawings kind of to illustrate the purpose. It feels like every time I make one of these videos, there's something I should have done. I would say I should have done this, but I didn't. In this case, it was the ears needed to have a sandwich on them. I just didn't do it. Looking at it now, it would have vastly improved. You can see there the little gap. So I just did a straightforward to a profile, and I kind of want to do a little ease back. The easiest way for me to do that is to switch in the skeleton tool from animate to IK mode and then change the root bone and then just change it back. And what that's going to do is punch in a bunch of keyframes for every column involved in that rig, as I'm going to do right here. Boom, done. And then you just select those and move them back down. You can kind of see that little ease back. I probably should have done it maybe a little bit further up the X sheet to make the movement a little bit more dramatic, but whatever. I would like to point out that this particular rig was made using only one drawing per column. However, if you start incorporating multiple drawings into each column of this rig, you'll end up with something that is incredibly versatile. I think what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't feel like you need to have each part that makes up the head in this rig work for every single shot. Don't be afraid to change the drawing up. Because it's vector, you're able to tween between one drawing and another extremely easy. It's super easy, super fast. So don't be afraid to push things around. Don't be afraid to kind of move stuff to get the right perspective, to get the right effect. And that goes for every rig. Don't be afraid to break the rig in order to get where you need to go. Hopefully you see the usefulness of this. If you don't, that is tragic. But hey, there's 10 minutes of your life that you will never, ever get back.